Next, we're going to do the student curriculum committee head. So does anyone have any questions for me to send to Heidi? Hamanu. Alicia.
How do you plan to best carry out this?
Are there any other questions for this position? Melanie.
How do you plan to utilize your committee?
Any other questions? That was already asked. That was the first question. Elizabeth. Any other questions, Siona? Charlie. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Siona, can you repeat the question?
How comfortable would you be serving as the head of the committee, and how would you keep the committee members accountable? Siona or Sorry, just curious.
Yeah. Elizabeth.
How would you say that this position demonstrates self-leadership?
Carolyn.
On COVID 2014, how comfortable are you interacting with faculty and staff members in a non-classroom, but not necessarily strictly professional setting?
Elizabeth. Oh, yeah.
Elizabeth Vandenberg, 2016. How would you go about getting student input on decisions that you make in this position?
Carolyn.
Carol Jacoby, 2014. How would you best represent to SGA what this position means and does? And to the community at large, not just SGA.
Melanie's writing down the questions. Does anyone else have questions? Okay, Mels, how are you doing? Okay, we're gonna move on to the civic engagement rep position.
Hi, I'm Samantha Norris. I'm in class of 2015.
Siona.
Okay. So the Civic Engagement Office is this tiny little building up on King Ring Road that no one really goes to that much, but I happen to spend a lot of time there. I have interacted with the staff at the Civic Engagement Office through various programs. I've had Praxis 2 placements, I've done Praxis 3. I'm the student coordinator for the Belmont Mentoring Program. I have done random, outreach things to senior citizen homes. I don't know. A lot of random things in the Civic Engagement Office, and they're a really important space for me, and I think that having them be more engaged with the student body by like through SGA, is something that's very important and should happen. I also feel like there are a lot of ways that that Civic Engagement Office and SGA overlap, and they're not really utilized or addressed.
Namita.
Limited Ordinance 2015, and there's a lot of initiatives to merge branches on Cambridge Row, like Lilac and the CEO, and make it kind of a larger space. How do you feel you would adjust to that, and what role you would play in that adjustment?
Yeah, I think a lot of that adjustment seems very arbitrary to a lot of students because they're just like these offices that like sometimes you use and sometimes you don't. But I think that by engaging with the student body more through SGA, there are a lot of ways that students would be more aware of this, merge, and might actually make use of offices in a more productive way.
Yeah.
Michaela, also 2015. So given that you have talked a little bit about like people not necessarily using CEO to its or for its capacity and like engaging in the I really like them to, how do you plan to sort of reach out to students and make sure that as many people as are able are interacting and working with the CEO?
I think right now the CEO, it's utilized by a lot of people who either like come into Bryn Mawr being like, I want to work in schools, or like I want to help old people, or I want to do that, but it doesn't really get talked about as this space that has a lot of other programs to offer that are like totally up for your own creation, like Praxis 3s and like new programs being created all the time. I don't know. And so I think that having the knowledge and just like being more aware of that, there are a lot of things that the CEO does that people don't know. It's how to get people there.
Can we go Charlie first? Okay.
Charlie Bruce, 2016. You talked about the underutilized resources of the CEO. One of the problems that we've seen at SGA this year is people not knowing what funds SGA funds are available to them and what CEO funds are available to them. How would you, as the CEO, educate people on what resources are available to them?
Honestly, I would first want to talk to the CEO staff a little bit more about like what they are able to fund and what they can do, because I know that it seems like there's so many clubs, like SGA funded clubs on campus who like their like underlying motive is civic engagement in like whatever large sense that may be, and working with them to sort of see like where is this boundary and like how can we encourage clubs to reach out to the CEO. I think that would be what I would focus on.
Alicia? Oh, sorry.
2017. How do you have any other leadership positions on campus for next year, and how will you manage your time?
Next year I'm gonna be an AJ. I'm still gonna be a student coordinator and the CEO, so I'll still be spending a lot of time there anyway. And what? Fallen? I don't know. Okay, guys, thanks.
Namita.
Limited Ordinance 2015. I know that there's like a lot of weird disconnect between the Bryn Mawr CEO and the Haverford equivalent, but there are some BICO CEO like programs. How do you plan on facilitating that BICO relationship?
Yeah, that's really important because the CEO equivalent at Haverford runs very differently, and therefore the two departments that were once sort of more collaborative in nature have sort of distanced themselves from each other. And I think the way to make student programs run more smoothly is to sort of reach out to the students and see like how they could be better supported, and basically like use me as the liaison to go through the staff. Work that way.
Do we have any other questions for this position? Namita.
Limited Ordinance 2015. underutilized? How do you plan on working with me, I guess, to find a balance of to find a balance and to help discern what clubs you think should be more CEO funded?
Yes. So, sort of like I said before, I want to communicate first with the staff of the CEO to really understand more what they can fund, and then based on that, communicate with you and like figure out how to maybe balance this more and make clubs more representative of what they actually are.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Next, we're going to do the heads of the residence council.
Cool. Hi guys, I'm Anna Kalinsky, 2015. I'm running for Resco Head, but first I'm going to tie my shoe. You guys can like ask questions. I can listen and tie my shoe at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the many things that makes me
Fiona,
qualified.
and then Emma.
I'm currently running alone. It's kind of a long story, but yeah, I'm running alone right now on the ballot.
Emma.
Emma Rose alone, 2014. There's a lot of questions for me. I'm just letting you know.
Great.
So there are 4 meetings a week and sometimes additional outside commitments, such as sending emails last minute and probably putting up with a lot of things that can test patience. How do you wish to time manage and communicate with people about all of this?
Did I wish to do that? Okay, so I served this past year as Resco Head with Emma, actually, which is why she has all these questions. I find it definitely is time. I don't know. I never found the time commitment to be huge. I think that's partially because I really enjoyed it. But I think it is actually, I think the meetings are very doable. I'm good at planning. I don't typically leave things to the last minute. And I'm also good at delegating, so I think I'll do okay.
Michaela.
Michaela, what are you currently working on that you'd like to continue and what new initiatives might you see?
I am so glad you asked that question. So Emma and I have actually done a lot of changes this year to Resco and how Resco stuff works. One of the big projects, which kind of started 2 years ago when I was actually a dorm president, has been really integrating dorm presidents into the DLT role. That's something I really hope to continue, possibly by coordinating with the heads of other DLT positions, like customs co-heads, stuff like that. Also, we've done a lot of modifications to how room draw works. We started mock room draw this year. That was like my baby. If any of you showed up, thank you. So stuff like continuing to make room draw more transparent. We've collected a lot more data, so next year we'll hopefully be able to release we'll make very public and very accessible data about what the quotas were and when dorms closed for singles for each class year, like at what number of how many beds. A few other things we've been working towards. This was the first year that Resco actually was proactive about making sure that the correct or like preferred names were used during room draw. Typically, it's kind of been up to people to notify us. This is the first year where we really pushed to be like, we need to reach out so that people can tell us if they need to have the name, if the name that's listed isn't accurate. So definitely want to do stuff with that. Continuing also work with, I think, facilities and housekeeping. There was a lot of issue earlier in the year with all the snow days about kind of communication, and we did a lot of work with the Residence Council to increase communication, standardize communication, deepen communication. I want to work on that. And I also really do want to establish, traditions as kind of like a traditions Bible. And Resco, similarly to traditions, has a lot of parts to it. There's a lot of little things you have to finagle, and I really do want to establish kind of a handbook, kind of springboard off of one that Emma's mostly been curating this year to be passed down to future Resco heads so that there can really be an established, so that there's precedent even for things that might only show up every few years.
Charlie.
Charlie, verse 2016. One of the problems this year with the DPs has been retention. How would you, in your Resco position, make this not happen?
That question goes right to my heart. No, retention has been a huge issue. We have been working with Mouse, who's the outgoing elections head, who is the person who runs dorm president elections, about making more clear, these are the responsibilities you have for dorm president, these are the things you'll have to do. Encouraging people to run in pairs, encouraging people that maybe if they are a rising sophomore, they should find like a rising junior or senior to run with. And also, I think that making ResCo into a tighter group, making it so that dorm presidents can rely like not only on their co-presidents but also on each other, can definitely be helpful towards kind of retention. Because I know that like dorm president is a lot of work, and I think that people don't always expect that, and historically haven't always expected that. So making it more clear what people would have to do, but then also making it easy for them to do that and giving them like support and giving them a community, which I think I'd also be very good at because this is my second time in the position, so I'd have experience working with that.
Emma. Wait, Swetha was raising her hand before too.
Okay, so why do you want this position and what makes you qualified for it?
Okay, I really like this question actually. I don't know. I think that one of the big things that we tout at Bryn Mawr is that Princeton Review for like 8 years in a row has ranked us as like number 1 or top 5 for dorms like Palaces. And furthermore, at Bryn Mawr we really have this deep community based on where the places where we live at Bryn Mawr very much so tend to shape our identity, shape our experiences, and I think it's important to me that everyone have the best experience they can, and that we work to really deepen these communities, not only between members of the community, like the sorts of things that like where dorm presidents might host teas, but also deepening connections with people like facilities and campus safety and housekeeping, and really making Bryn Mawr a community not only of dorms but within dorms. Can you write that down so I can put it in my candidate statement? That was a good one.
Okay, Swetha.
I was wondering, I guess like as an AJ this year, there's been a lot of times where conflict resolution has been a problem, and I was wondering if there would be any way you would work with the social entrepreneurs or the board to like help train DLT or help the door presidents more training or like backup in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. That has actually been kind of continued discussion at ResCo, sort of who within DLT should maintain confrontation and like these issues, should DLT be doing that? And actually historically the role of dorm president was sort of a like dorm mediator. So there is definitely probably over the summer I'll do a lot of conversation with Angie, with the honor board about whether or not we want to facilitate confrontation training and sort of social honor code training with the dorm presidents. Personally, I think they should. I think because dorm presidents like exist as a DLT member, sort of removed from the hall as a greater DLT member, they might be a good in-dorm resource, or at least like a good referral to the conflict resolution committee. But definitely that's something I would want to work with.
Okay, wait, Pamu.
Okay, so 2015. So, God forbid, if like next year as well, if many dorm presidents step down, do you have any plans to have more training for the people who take up the position? Because dorm presidents do have training at the end of the year, and if somebody is stepped down, people who take up positions do not have as much training.
Yeah, definitely. So it was kind of hard this year because a lot of it was unexpected and also very much so unprecedented to have this many step downs. I think part of that is because the role of dorm president this year, much more so than last year, and last year much more so than the year before, has sort of been increasing in responsibility. So we were talking about potentially having post-winter break a like refresher training. It wasn't something we could quite get together this year, but that would be something I'd want to host next year, so that sort of on-the-fly debriefing would happen, but also so that halfway through the year there could be a refresher where people could also sort of bring up continued issues and those could be addressed and hopefully changed.
Okay, Alicia.
Alicia Humans, 2017. How would you help a student that feels uncomfortable speaking to the dorm president?
That's actually, so one of my favorite things, so you're a first year, so you don't quite know this, but it used to be that my freshman year, dorm presidents were elected at that first like full dorm meeting of the year where you vote on like quiet hours and stuff. So dorm presidents didn't get training, things like that. And then my sophomore year when I was a dorm president, that was the first year that dorm presidents were elected during like, not like kind of during April, like during around the regular election rounds. And the role was hopefully to integrate them into the DLT. So the idea was also partially with that like HAs and dorm presidents could like have sort of a checks and balances. I know there have been issues where people haven't felt comfortable going to HAs, and then dorm presidents become a resource, and also vice versa. we also hope to send out, we didn't do it this year because we didn't want to like spring it on the dorm presidents, but having like check-ins with other DLT members in the dorms, like going to HAs and being like, hey, how are your dorm presidents? Or even sending out surveys to, like, anonymous surveys to the entire dorm, being like, I know who my dorm president is, I know where they live, you know, I feel comfortable going to them about things, I have gone to them, asking for feedback in that sense.
Charlie.
Charlie First 2016. There's been, so you were talking about the increasing role of dorm presidents in the past few years. One of the conversations that's been happening on campus is, should dorm presidents get paid? Because other members of the LTIs, CAs, mentors, they have very demanding positions. Because things now have increasingly demanding positions, should they get paid as well?
I'm sure they would like to get paid. That has been a conversation that we've had with Angie Sheets, both in Resco a little bit, but also Emma and I, we have meetings once a week, just us with Angie Sheets, that has been brought up. It's kind of an issue because unlike HAs and peer mentors, dorm presidents are elected. So it would have to kind of be at that point, like, could we have an elected paid position on campus? Is that something that, like at that point, the college wants to do? That has been a repeated conversation, like incentives for dorm presidents for holding the role. At this time, it's not, like, it's a conversation I'd be willing to continue. It is a very demanding role, but like ultimately that's not something that I would have a say in. That really would probably be money that would come out of like residential life.
Namita, and then Emma.
See the role of the off-campus rep and off-campus. Oh, sorry, you did our presentation. Where do you see the role of the off-campus rep and students on campus in Resco in the upcoming year? Because I know there's always been a little bit of ambiguity about where they are.
Yeah, so traditionally, like if you look at the bylaws and stuff, off-campus reps they don't have to come to Resco meetings, but COPS heads do. I don't really know. We like the COPS heads, we like having them there. Next year, we definitely want to reach out to the off-campus rep or representatives. That is important. There actually has been an issue where like off-campus people don't technically receive funding the way that like dorms do for dorm events. So we want to work with residential life like straight off the bat to make sure that happens. Probably even try to get the off-campus rep in for like the DLT training that dorm presidents do. But no, like off-campus students are still, even though they're not maybe technically like residential, the students who live off campus are still a very important part of our community and they definitely deserve a space to be represented.
Emma.
And Rosamund 2014. So you work with a lot of people who don't get to vote for you for this position, including your constituency. So this includes housekeeping facilities and of course residential aid. How are you going to make sure that you are voting their best interest at SGA meetings? And how do you plan to disseminate information from meetings with this group of people to SGA and vice versa?
I have a lot of their phone numbers.
That's crazy.
You know it is. They gave them to me. No. So obviously we have Tuesday group, which is actually this semester on Wednesdays, but where we meet with housekeeping, facilities, res life, the deans, campus safety, Donna Bromwitz, head of environmental safety, and we really do disseminate information to them. And like the more information that we tell them, the happier they are. We had a really fantastic conversation about the honor code this past Wednesday. We've had conversations about how things run on campus. They really are curious, they really want to learn, and I think that makes it very easy to talk to them because they are so eager. And they do, I think, ultimately put a lot of trust in us to vote. I think that really their interest, their best interest is what we think our best interest is. They honestly care about this campus so much. They put a lot of interest in, like, their best interest is whatever is best for us and sort of whatever the Resco heads think is best, which I think makes it easy to vote for them. They really do have a lot of trust in us, which is a very important relationship, obviously.
Kamalu.
So in fall of 2015, Hackman is going to be back online. Technically,
Allegedly.
and if that's going to be so, you have a lot, as you to be Resco head next year, you have to deal with all of the housing situation and so. What challenges do you think you'll come across in this situation, and how would you?
Definitely, I think one of the issues would be trepidation. People would be like, do I want to live in a new dorm or do I want to live in an old dorm? Like maybe people would think like, oh, I didn't like Hafner, I wouldn't want to live in New Hafner, which if any of you have a few $1 million lying around, they would consider naming after you if you donated a fun fact. But actually, like, there's historical precedent where when Erdman and Hafner both opened, they were incredibly popular dorms. So I actually think that there probably wouldn't be too much issue necessarily getting people into them, especially to fill that kind of like apartment-like vacancy that Hafner left. Definitely it would be weird. It would be weird thinking about what would this community be like who's going to live there? Are people going to want to live there? What is going to make this place different from Hafner? How is it going to be the same? How is it going to tie into the community? Is it going to be social? Will it not be social? So it is a challenge, and ultimately with room draw, it kind of depends on how things fall. It wouldn't necessarily be me, but I'm really excited to be a part of that conversation. I don't know if that answered your question at all. Kinda.
Emma.
How comfortable are you in facilitating meetings and remaining neutral? And if you're not comfortable with this, what actions will you take to make sure that you're comfortable with this by the time next year starts?
I'm pretty comfortable facilitating meetings. I've been facilitating ResCo meetings for this past year, attending ResCo for 2 years. I'm comfortable in front of crowds, in front of people. Bossy, maybe a little. Definitely, I guess it would be hard running as one person without kind of that checks and balances thing. So it definitely would. I would actually definitely, if I held this position alone, reach out more to people like Angie and Diana, especially to sort of talk things over before I immediately react to them, which can't always happen because things do come up at ResCo that you have come out of absolutely nowhere. So definitely would be something I would work on. Also probably work on getting anonymous feedback from dorm presidents, sort of keeping me checked and balanced.
Namita, and then Emma again.
If you thought the dorm president wasn't upholding their responsibilities, how would you respond to that?
Okay, so definitely I think the first person who I would go to, especially if things have come to me from AJs, customs people, residents, first off, I would probably go to Angie Sheets. That would be an issue. How do we do this? I think that really has to be treated differently for different dorm presidents. Some people, might just get frustrated and quit. Others might get hostile. I think that's sort of the sort of thing that can be dealt with just sort of in casual meetings. Not even oh, let's meet, but hey, can we hang out a few minutes after ResCo? That's actually thing like that. We have done that in the past, and just sort of hey, we've had these issues broached. Is there anything you're struggling with? Is there anything we can help you with? This is a big position. There's a lot of stuff to do. Is there anything that you think that we could work together on to fix this problem?
Emma.
I'm Rosalind 2014. So, assuming that Hafner ends up in use in the fall of 2015, you're going to have to lead a variety of conversations around space on campus, including potentially around how the new Hafner will be used. Will it be a language store? How will you make sure you gather the voices of students and the members of Tuesday Group alike and put them in conversation with each other?
That's a really good question. I think honestly, if and when the Hafner discussion becomes a bigger discussion, that almost goes beyond the role of ResCo. That sort of becomes, I think that would be the sort of conversation that would be best handled maybe at an SGA meeting, but also possibly as a town hall. I think that really would be a time to get not just the people we have in Tuesday Group, but also people like Kim Cassidy, also the architects, the people who designed this building for a specific purpose, and really just have an open discussion about what New Hafner would be and how we want it to be that way, and how we want to bring it there.
Emma.
What are you most nervous for about this position next year?
What am I nervous for? I'm nervous that you won't be there. Other than that, mostly that. What am I nervous for?
Thank you, though.
No, that's mostly it. Definitely I've set a lot of high goals for myself. We've started a lot of things this year, and there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of stuff that I want to keep going, but if it falls flat, I'm definitely going to be disappointed. I feel like I put a lot into this role. It's something that I really enjoy and really love, and really I think that my biggest enemy is going to be myself. I'm setting some high goals for myself, and I'm definitely going to want to meet them.
Emma. Emma, I called on you.
I'm sorry. This is my last question, I promise. So you talked earlier about trying to get residents council to be a tighter group between each other. And something that I remember our predecessors told me at least was that we want
dorm presidents to talk to each other instead of talking to like us in the position. So what exactly are you going to do to facilitate this kind of group and to maintain it, especially, God forbid, there's a whole bunch of other elections next year?
There's not. Everyone's going to get elected and they're going to do a great job and they're not going to leave me. No, I think that we did a few times this year at Resco have sort of like fun meetings where, you know, they show up, we deal with all the like immediate pressing issues, you know. My dorm has rats the size of chihuahuas or whatever. That never happened. Like, don't quote me on that. And then we would go into fun stuff. So we did like decorating, like making posters for things like the project dorm room or for like Halloween, or also like end of semester meetings. There tends to be like a lot of food. I think that increasing that and having more meetings that are actually based around fun and around bonding would be really good. Also potentially meetings outside of just a group, things like movie nights, things where like Angie Sheets isn't there and it's a less formal setting where we can kind of talk about problems that have come up, but also just sort of like maybe talk about more like our own feelings. Or one of those like bring my feelings chats. Talk about how like we are handling our positions and how our positions are affecting us and not how like we're affecting our constituency. Anyone else?
Are there any further questions for this position? Anna.
Anna Sargent, 2015.
Goats.
Okay. That's it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Anna.
Thank you for not making me sing.